Welcome to Stampscaping 101. Let's do a quick scene here. I say quick, but does it ever turn out quick? I don't know. I guess some of them do. Let's use nature set number 25. It's the waterfalls here. And let's do that on the rainbow holographic paper. Very inexpensive paper by Recollections, sold at Michael's. If you're in other areas of the country, are Michael's nationwide? I think they are. If you're out of the country, though, and you can't find something like this, I don't know, try some of the, you can probably find some gold or silver types of foil papers, different types of colors, play around with those. They won't give you the rainbow type of look, but you can get kind of, you can use these techniques in the same or similar fashion, okay? Now what I'm doing right here is I'm going to stamp a couple of these waterfalls at the base right here. I don't know exactly where the falls are going to be, okay? But they're generally going to, there's not a huge amount of variation that we're talking about when we're talking about a quarter-page piece of paper, but I figured the falls will be somewhere in here, okay, at the base of it. I don't have to be exact because I make my designs tonally, okay? So if there's areas that I don't want to be light, I've made them darker, on the designs, okay? So it'll stamp right over the white. So therefore you don't have to put it in there. So I make them tonal, and I put in the solids where they need to be, so that when we use whatever types of techniques we're using, I try to take out as much of the mystery as possible as far as the usage goes, so that you don't have to do so much in terms of your applications. If you don't want to, there's all kinds of things we can do in terms of techniques, from, I don't know, the very simple types of techniques like this one, to much more advanced ones where maybe you're layering on, I don't know, 10 layers of different media or something like that. As far as this goes, this one's going to be pretty simple, but hopefully in the end it doesn't look like just a simplistic looking technique. Hopefully it looks fairly sophisticated. Okay, I'm getting that fairly dry. I did put on a pretty good slathering of that ink right there, so if it's not completely dry, no big deal. I just kind of want to get it set somewhat. You might have seen me kind of bending this, this way and that way as I was heating it, because it'll curl otherwise, okay? I mean, you could let it curl and then just counterbend it, when you're done, but I don't know. Just be careful about that. You don't have to be too careful. I wasn't, but you don't want to just heat set it and hold it there forever and have the holographic aspect of it, or the rainbow aspect of it, just pucker and to be eliminated from view, which can happen. You can kind of heat set for too long. Those heat guns get really hot. All right, so just using some black Brilliance ink right here. Okay, this is the Babbling Brook. I can put it over here, I could put it over here. Let's go with this direction right here. I don't remember doing a foil, or at least the rainbow holographic foil waterfall scene before. I might have, but I don't remember. Okay, so down here, see that holographic part, but you see how it's not doing that in the water. I mean, we could set it to where it does. I just won't put the white. But I think this rainbow holographic type of paper is really cool. I like all aspects of it, but I think it looks better in a scene, kind of used not conservatively or so, I don't want to eradicate it, but it just looks better in certain areas rather than kind of all over the, the place. I just, you know, I want it in targeted areas, I guess you could say. So I don't know. It could be something like a, you know, that would be cool up there in terms of like a Northern Lights type of thing, if you want to. Or it could be reflecting down here in the water. There could be kind of this rainbow type of thing getting kicked up in the mist where lighting is hitting it. Maybe it's moonbows or something like that at nighttime. If you've ever heard of that before, I never heard of them until I went out to Yosemite one time and was driving home at night, and this person said, "Hey, you're going to go see the moonbows tonight." And we said, "What?" Yeah, we had no idea what they were talking about. Happened to be a full moon night. Went over to Lower Falls and checked out the moonbows in the Lower Falls misting area, which is pretty cool. All right, so this is what we're looking at right here. Okay, now do you see right down here where it's not, you know, you don't see that rainbow effect? It's because it's been blocked out by the white. Now you can't see where the white goes into the rocks, you know, very much, but you can see like right here, it's not as, you know, iridescent and foil-like. And I like that too. You know, I'll tone out some of these other rocks in here too, so that it's a little bit more, I don't know, selective in terms of the visibility of that rainbow holographic look. Okay? All right, so this has been stamped. By the way, you could stamp this out in like a StazOn or something too, and you won't even need to heat set it. But I did it in the graphite black, so it's heat set. Now, I don't know if that's absolutely necessary, but when I start applying ink over the top of this, if that impression is still wet, you know, it's going to smear some of the imagery. So it could be a little bit wet, you know, don't worry about it. But like I said, just don't overheat it. You know, it's not a delicate process or anything like that. Just don't set and hold that, you know, heat gun there for, you know, 3 or 5 seconds or something like that. All right. So now, this lesson here is, you know, showing various techniques right here and concepts, but this is kind of like going back to some of the previous videos where we're talking about varying our values for the purpose of creating depth and the illusion of kind of three-dimensionality to these pieces right here. We want them to look rounded in form and kind of deeper in space than a flat visual what these things are. In actuality, they're just impressions right on a piece of paper. But that doesn't mean that we have to have them look flat, okay? We want them to be nice and rounded. Let me keep counterbending this. I think it's kind of cooling down. As it cools, it kind of starts to curl. So just find the curl and then just counterbend it in the direction. See this right here? It's still a little bit. Go more extreme, maybe. I don't know. That really wants to stick up like that here. Okay, let's just apply some ink right here. I don't know why. This is really a tough thing. All right, a little bit better. I would matte this off. In fact, I'll do that towards the end here. Okay, so anyways, the good thing about this Brilliance ink. Okay, now see, if I was doing it in something like a dye-based ink, this ink is not going to stick on here. All right, but you can kind of add this down. And one of the things I did a video earlier today is kind of finding the sweet spot as far as your impression pressure. Okay, now this is just doing some tonal application of this pigment ink, okay? But you got to find the right touch. Okay, now it's not going to be the same for everyone because how much ink is on your pad and how much ink is on your applicator is going to play into this, but I generally start just applying this with a very light touch at first, okay? And then I'll just get those applications down in repetition if I can, okay? So right here, what I'm doing is I'm just trying to create some variation in my pool of water. Okay? So we get kind of a couple different areas of light like that. All right? Let's carry this across. Okay, now finding that sweet spot, what I was getting at is if I press too hard, that ink will come right off. So it's kind of just finding what works in terms of your application. A lot of times for you guys, when we're doing this for the very first time, what happens is we're pressing too hard, okay? Think of it like you're applying powder or something like that, makeup to something, okay? We're not going to press it too much. If you're getting too much of something and it's just applying too thick, just use a clean part of your applicator. In this case, this one happens to be 100% cotton ball, okay? And just kind of wipe off. You might be kind of dragging some others, some other areas, but by and large, you can kind of just really manipulate this. You see, I'm kind of wiping some of this off, creating a little bit more of a transition there. Right here, I got a little bit hard impressions with my, I don't know, as I was doing this, it was kind of getting my fingernail or something like that. But this will give you a chance to kind of wipe things off a little bit and to just kind of blend it out, all right? So we have something like this going, so that's working as another, somewhat barrier for that hot, type of coloration up there. Okay, now let's bring some of this. I'm going a little bit narrower now. See, I'm kind of pinching this off, where it's this little tiny area. Well, it's not tiny, but a smaller area, okay? And I'm inking it up accordingly, like that. I want to blot off a little bit, and by blotting off, it kind of evens out some of that ink on here. And now I'm hitting some of my areas on my rocks in the shadow areas of those rocks. So what I'm doing is I'm toning in, and I'm reiterating the lighting convention, you can call them, or you might call it the shading convention, whatever, it's the same type of thing, of these rocks. So typically on the lower side of the rocks, the bottom side, it's darker because those are going into shadow. And what I'm doing here, I'm not necessarily trying to get it just black, I'm trying to apply kind of a grayish tinge of this black pigment ink, and it's a little bit too much up there. So you just kind of wipe it off like that. You can wipe it completely off because we already heat set this, so it's not so fragile if we wipe, the imagery off. It's not subject to, removal as much now that it's dry. All right, so adding that in, see, those rocks look a little bit more, slightly more three-dimensional that way. Okay, I forgot my post-it note. I should have a post-it note on the bottom part of it, so I just grab that and move it around. When I grab this, that area down here is still wet, so I'm leaving my fingerprints everywhere. Someone else gave me the idea for the post-it note. Thank you again if you're watching this. I haven't done a foil in a couple of weeks, I think. All right, so adding that in, leaving some areas white or light, okay. Now, okay, here's some other things. Let's take advantage of these images here. In the set, I'm going to go with another design here. These are some rocks right here, okay. And we're going to put this down here in the water, so let's make it look a little bit more three-dimensional, okay. You can go for multiple impressions. You want to get that kind of lighter impression up there. Where the water looks like you can kind of see, some of those textures below the water's surface. All right, added that in there. Some of these are like the fifth impression or something like that, but see what I do? I hit the darker impressions, the wettest, in the darker areas. Then as I move out, the first impression's the darkest, second one's, the second darkest, but I put that kind of in that area right there, moving into the light. Third impression, fourth, fifth, you're barely visible, but this is happening. What's happening here is we're transitioning imagery values into the light. Darker in the darker areas, that whatever, the secondary, third, fourth, whatever impressions are moving up into the light areas, so we get more of a gray. And when you look at it like that, you get a little bit more depth, visual depth that way. Dark to light, okay? Kind of front to back. All right, now let's see. Let's go for some foreground impressions. I just have some little leaves on the top part of rocks and leaves. I'm going to put down here. It might be a good idea to heat set. I'm not going to do it here though. Let's just see if I can get a good impression. See, sometimes when you're stamping wet into wet, you create this kind of vacuum effect where you pick the stamp off of the surface and all the ink comes with it. I just told someone that in another video. They're having troubles getting good impressions, and I just mentioned it's the vacuum effect, especially if they have really juicy pads, okay? And we're inking this up and it's leaving a lot of ink on there. You might go onto a non-porous surface such as this one. You leave your impression like that and hold it so that that ink will transfer over a little bit. It'll kind of move off the rubber a little bit and it'll give you a good impression over the top of other inks. Okay, now it was only wet over here and here, okay? I think if I do an impression in here, it'll actually remove ink from that area, which is kind of a technique in itself. I learned it doing this right here. I tried stamping something black in a black area, and it kind of gave me a little bit of impression, but it removed ink more than it transferred. And it's probably because I went like this and lifted as opposed to stamping and kind of holding for a while, okay, and then lifting. You don't want to press harder and harder and harder, otherwise you're going to get that perimeter squeeze out of ink, okay? All right, so that is that. Let's try something. I was looking at this in here. I was thinking kind of more of a horizontal application of ink in the background might look cool, because that is like a long strip, so I'm kind of matching that kind of elongated spirit with some additional tones laid down. Okay, so let's go in here with a little bit more of this white, and I'll put a little band across there. I don't know if we'll be able to see it when we're done here, but I think it will kind of contribute to kind of the overall look of the piece. Okay, I'm doing two bands. There's one right here and one right here. Let's see if you can see it. Yeah, you can see it a little bit, right? Okay, now I'm going to try working around that with some of the black ink, okay? I don't find this process right here to be particularly graceful. Here's the thing, when I wipe like this, I'm wiping very lightly. I don't know, I just don't have very much control over it, okay? Working with thicker inks, I don't know, I think you kind of relinquish, some of that control, because how much pressure you used, will determine how much ink is lifted, how much ink is transferred, etc. And your media might be changing, okay? You might use your pad one day and use it the next day and it's drier or something like that. I mean, it's not, just totally, unpredictable or something like that, but it's predictable in its, I wouldn't say unpredictability, but just in the variations possible. It's just unpredictable that way. So I wouldn't say you're learning a new technique every time you do it, but things have a little bit of a different feel, so try to be nice and flexible in terms of your whatever tolerance levels. Don't go looking for too much control if you're one of those people that really has to have that. When you're going after something, kind of leave things a little bit open to, I don't know, variations and kind of unexpected types of looks. Okay, this is looking pretty good right here. I'm surprised I haven't done this in a little bit. I don't know, a few weeks or something like that, but that applied pretty well. Okay, so we have a little bit of sky like that. Looks like a perfect opportunity for some sort of a quote stamp. I'm not sure what quote I would put in this one. Take a look. Maybe just a word or something like that. Okay, going back in and fine-tuning. I really have to fine-tune a lot because I get fingers in here all the time. Okay. Well, let's heat set this and move on to whatever comes next. Some pretty thick application. It doesn't seem like it's curling as much on me this time. I don't know why. Maybe it's because it's already been kind of subject to or exposed to heat in previous layers. But look at that. See that? Doesn't that have a certain mood to it? That rainbow holographic foil. I think this would look good on blue foil too, or something of that sort. It would give it more of a kind of a somber look. Maybe calm. You can call it calm. Whatever. You know, when we're talking about kind of certain types of aspects of scenes, nature, etc. You know, we're talking about kind of emotional reactions or perceptions, which is always fun because things are always, I don't know, people kind of experience those types of things differently. Okay, let's go back to the white and let's add some fogging and dimension to this piece. It's interesting. I look at my camera screen and it's a different color than what I'm seeing sitting where I am right now. We just saw it purple earlier. Now it's that orange. Okay, so anyways, we're working from the light tones into the darker tones. It's where light meets dark. Okay, and that's the most kind of effective kind of range on your scene to add this type of touch right here. If you add it in the white like this, in this lighter area, you can't really see it at all, but it's that transitioning area right in there. That's kind of the sweet spot. Try to transition it too, kind of graceful. You don't want this in like a blobby form, but let's take a look at that fog right there and see how it looks over here. It's all crisp. We can leave it crisp if we want to, kind of to make a little bit of a textural, you know, contrast, but whatnot. But I think I like the fog like this though, so I'm adding it in. Okay. Looks pretty good. I'm not leaving so many fingerprints on the perimeter either, but you see that fog in there and how, look how it changed the spirit of these rocks right there. Let's hit with it. See that rock right there? It's the same one, so there's a little bit of, you know, too much, I don't know, similarity to it. So I'm going to knock this one back, I think, in light and mist or whatever. Okay. Go with something like that. Yeah, see, it doesn't, you know, I'm not getting that same type of, you know, kind of a tension between those two identical objects like that. Those ones really stood out, too, because they're kind of isolated rocks, so you want to, you know, You don't have to, but I was going to say you can, just kind of, you can minimize stuff with this white pigment ink very easily. Okay, so I'm going to look for a quote stamp or something like that to be used up here. Let me go look for that and see if I can find anything that really stands out that I want. Alright, I have a quote here. A picture is a poem without words. I don't remember the last time I used this. There's a lot of scenic sentiment stamps, quotes and words and whatnot. Some of them I don't know if I've even used yet. I guess that's a good thing. Sometimes you look at the quotes and you kind of conceive of a design of a scene around that quote. But most of the times I'm kind of stamping out the piece first, and then I'm, kind of, in this case, like an afterthought of, putting a quote in there. Okay, so this one, I'm stamping it out in black. If it got really dark up there, I'd do this one in white. But let's put this right in that light area. Okay. Kind of holding down. Don't press too much. You don't want to squash your letter forms. But you do want it to transfer well. Okay. Confucius. A picture is a poem without words. Like that. I think it looks pretty good. The letter forms, I forgot what font that is. They're not so big and thick, so it kind of, it kind of blends in with that surrounding area fairly well. Bold would be fine too, but this one kind of sits back into the piece, I think, a little bit. All right. Let's really kind of bring this out a touch more. Let's bring in some bleed-proof white. How's that? I don't remember if I've used... I had to have, right? Used the bleed-proof white on Rainbow Holographic. When I move on to other things, I was using a lot of Rainbow Holographic, then I tried playing around with some different foils, and I was using paint pens and experimenting around with all kinds of things, colored pencils, I don't know, multimedia, and having some fun. Okay, so I have that on my toothbrush right here. Let's just go into it. I usually recommend kind of doing a little bit of a spray, just so you know which direction it's going in. I'm just going to go for it here and see. Okay, see how I'm adding this very, very slowly. Okay, I don't want to put a big splatter and just go splattering across all into the sky or something like that. You can use like a white paint pen or something like that. This one's just a little bit faster if you're doing a lot of dots, and having it a little bit more random is no problem, which is what I want for this one. But the paint pen would suffice if that's all I had. Just kind of keep it a little bit more random, have some larger dots, some smaller ones. From a textural standpoint, having these crisp little white dots are really quite fun to employ into the scene. It really kind of brings it to life too sometimes. See that right down there? Look at that. And then look at this though. Isn't that crazy? With the Rainbow Holographic. I don't know, I think it's really neat. Okay. I just need to be careful around that splatter a little bit. I don't have to be too careful. After about, 10, I don't know, 20 seconds or something like that. But let's do something. So I have these right here. Why not use some of those? These little splashes in the water. Let's use some of this too. I'm just using some glue and I'm squeezing it out on my paper. Okay. And I can use my little pin here as a glue applicator. This glue is really super thick, so straight from bottle doesn't work so well sometimes. I'm putting a pretty good dollop of glue on here sometimes when I don't do that, and I don't know, I have a big stack of scenes ready to be sprayed, and I'm stacking on top of one another. Then after I spray them, they're going into a box all stacked up. Sometimes I find like one of my crystals has come off, so I'm putting in a pretty good dollop of this glue in there. Now, okay, and here's my little pinhole on my glue stick. Hey, it works. Okay, let's go fairly subtle on here. Well, I don't know. Okay, I'll go with my smallest of my little crystals here. Okay, this is just a little gem. Oops. I put it on upside down, no big deal. I just kind of flipped it over. Yeah, that's the only thing about your gem pickers. Just get your crystals kind of the right side up. Alright, so just go for a little bit of variation. There's variation in our splatter painting. Yeah, there we go. And how about one kind of dominant star, which will become a dominant twinkle on our piece right here. What happened to my... what happened to my... Oh, here it is. It fell off. Okay, let's take a look at this piece right here. I still need to mount it on something. I'll figure something out here. But there's those little twinkly bits. Yeah, you can put a few more if you want to. You can put some white dots up there too if you want to. Maybe we should. Those little twinkly bits look pretty cool, but I'm not sure if they read as stars without kind of a little bit more of a reference point to a star, with a little bit of white. Okay. Yeah, I think that looks better. There's a little bit more continuity from down here to up here. I guess you could splatter paint these too, but I don't like splatter painting around word and quote stamps too much, because I mean, if you get a splatter within here, it looks like a dot from an I or something like that, or a J or whatever. So it can kind of interfere with your typography a little bit. So just be careful about that. Or you just splatter paint before the quote, but the problem with that is forget about that, because if you still stamp that out, you still have that I within the letter forms. Okay. I do splatter paint around quotes sometimes, though. Like, I might just cover it up like that, and I just splatter paint like that, but I don't know. You can do something like that. Okay, so here's what that looks like up there. Doesn't that sky look a little bit more kind of full and deep with those additional dots? This one here, look at that. It's like date, it's like nighttime. I don't know, whatever. Dusk. I was looking at it from one angle, there was a little bit more orangish tint. That looks right there, looks like Northern Lights when I hold it like that, right? It has that purple and green like that. Yeah. Alright, let's see if we can find a good... Oh, look at that greenish aqua. That's fun stuff. Okay, well, let me see if I can find a good mounting solution here for this card. I think it makes them look better. I don't do that a lot of times in the past, but I've come to realize it makes the cards look so much better. Okay, let's... Alright, we have a quick and simple kind of matting solution here. I just have a little bit of an iridescent white It's like a Metallics bear grass. You can use any kind of white type of paper. It could be matte, matte cardstock or something like that. But see, there's just that little thin layer around there. Usually matte with the idea of colors, okay, colors that you've used in your piece or something like that. But from a textural standpoint, that's where this little thin layer comes in, because it's about the same width as like that star right there, okay? So what we're doing is we're kind of bringing out that texture in there and also that value of white. So it brings out the white in here a little bit more, and like all those little splashes down there, having that little border on there. And then just this perimeter right here is a super dark blue, kind of navy chrome coat paper. It's a glossy cardstock. They don't really have this dark navy blue from any companies anymore, but I've seen black. There's plenty of glossy black. So I thought that worked pretty good like that. I thought it looked pretty good, I thought, too, with, like colored foils and stuff like that. Let's see if this blue is on there. But, having this super dark blue that's practically black is a little bit more neutral, and I thought that looks pretty good. So anyways, let's take a look at this from a textural standpoint. We have the soft and the crisp textures in there with the form of in the form of pigment ink and bleed-proof white. We also have the little pens up there. And just for kind of extra interest, here we see our twinkly little, starlights like that. See that right there, how that twinkles? Go like this, and they twinkle on and off depending on what angle you're at. So if someone's looking at your card like this, they do something, watch this right here, they do something like that. It's almost like having a little battery-powered LED in the background like that. Having the light come from within. I mean, it's reflected light, yeah, but having that kind of mirrored type of little element in there really reflects back, I don't know, I'm guessing, 95% of the light or something like that. But look what's happening with the holographic foil, too. When you do this type of thing, you were getting different personality. I was holding, yeah, there it is right there. That has a really different feel. It's almost like a deserty, looking surface. And then here's a completely different one. I can't even find the purple. This is kind of a good thing, though, because there's so many different personalities. There's the purple one. If I go like that. Oh, there's that Aurora Borealis look. So, I don't know. This is just really fun stuff and fairly dynamic to work with, or very dynamic, I would say, to work with, just in terms of the different personalities within the same piece, just depending on what kind of light is reflecting off of the surface like that. Okay, so anyways, hope you enjoyed the piece, the scene and video, and I don't know, when it comes to the development of form and things like that, and making objects look more three-dimensional, and being, in this case, top-lit, I hope this video came in handy for you. If you have any questions or have any difficulties kind of achieving any of these types of techniques that I use in these videos here, one of the really good things is to email me, but to also attach a photo of your piece, and we'll get things worked out. Okay, so anyways, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it.